Hi, my name is Greg Canty, and I'd like to welcome you to the Win Happy podcast. I love chatting to people from all walks of life about their lives and their careers, about the choices they make along the way to pursue their happiness, and what winning actually means to them. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I do. Thanks for listening. On today's podcast, I chat with Valerie O'Hanlon, career coach and the founder of Clarence Consulting. In a way, Valerie was her own first client as she took her career direction into her own hands and changed what she was doing to go out on her own. It's not worth it to be miserable, she says, and as a career coach, she helps people who might be stuck in a career rut to make changes and end that misery. We chatted about her own colourful career and why she called her business after a special character in her favourite Christmas movie. Let's hear it from Valerie. Valerie O'Hanlon, a huge welcome to the Win Happy podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Greg. And thanks for asking me to be on your Win Happy podcast. I think it's an excellent name and lovely podcast. So delighted to be here.
Do you know what I really like, and it struck me about our bits and bobs of correspondence between each other?
Yes.
I don't think we've ever met in person, have we?
We've never met in person, no, but we've been having interactions for the last 10 years.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
LinkedIn buddies.
LinkedIn buddies, yes.
And I think for that very reason, when I don't know what we were interacting about lately, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to ask Valerie, would she like to come on the podcast? And I thought what was really nice, and it probably said something about you. You were sort of saying to me, well, I don't have a book, or I'm not a famous person, or I'm not a this, or I'm not a that, or I'm not a whatever. But in a way, with what you do, you're the perfect Win Happy guest because of what you do. So you're founder and the owner of Clarence Consulting.
Yes.
And before I start putting labels on it, I'm going to, I'm going to hear your labels and how you describe it and everything else. I would describe you as a people change maker. And we can get into that in a while, but that's
a lovely description.
Yeah, I'm going to put it there, and you might agree or disagree, or we can get into it and all that kind of thing. And as the listener listens to our conversation, all will be revealed as we go through the different steps. But the first question that I'd like to ask you, and we're not anywhere near Christmas, but I'm going to ask you anyway, what is your favourite Christmas movie?
Well, it has to be It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay, so we're going to, yes, go on.
Will I go on? So, and the reason being, I think it is a wonderful movie. Big fan of Jimmy Stewart. And it's a black and white. It's from the 40s. And it's where I got my name for my company, Clarence Consulting.
Okay.
So Clarence was the guardian angel in It's a Wonderful Life. And in It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart is down on his luck, feeling hard done by, never got to fulfill his dreams. And he feels his life has been a bit of a waste. So he wishes that he was never born.
Okay.
And so Clarence takes him back over his life to show him the difference that he made to other people's lives.
So we'll come back to Clarence in a while.
Yeah.
But that's the little bit of a backdrop, exactly.
Yeah. You've set the scene.
For our chat. So the question I ask everyone, and the reason I do that, I want people to get to know you and how you've come about, offering this service and everything else. But you need to kind of understand the backstory to really get a sense of who Valerie is. And in a way, when I look at your bio, I think to myself, you are your own perfect client in many respects. The perfect client is actually in your story, if I think about it. So, who the hell are you and where did you come from?
Sometimes you wonder, do I know who I am? But I think I do. And I think it takes a while to get to that point where you know who you are. So who am I and where do I come from? I'm from Dublin. I'm living in Limerick. My father thought that we were sixth generation Dublin liberties people. until the 1911 census came out and we realised that we were actually from County Kildare. So my parents came from inner city Dublin, and we had 6 girls in the family. I'm number 5 of 6. And in family systems, they say actually that the 5th child becomes the oldest child at some point, starts taking on some of the characteristics of an older child. So I guess my father was a musician and a singer and gigged around Dublin in pubs and clubs and weddings and things like that. And so we were all a little bit musical, not very good at the instruments, but we were all good singers, or what you call it, entertainers. We knew how to put across a song. So when I did singing in school and that kind of thing, but when I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. You're talking like the mid to late 80s, Greg. And in those days, not everybody went to college like they do now. And certainly for my parents, who hadn't even done a junior cert or an inter cert, left school at 14, the biggest achievement for them was to see all 6 girls get a good leaving cert, an honour and honours maths, and a job in the bank.
The golden ticket.
That was the golden ticket. You get that, and we were made for life. Good job. We'd probably meet somebody, to marry in the bank, and then you get your retirement then as well. So that was the pinnacle of their ambitions for us.
Yeah, and it's funny when we're talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
I remember myself having this feeling and this stress, because I'm exactly the same era as you. I did my leaving cert in 1982 as a 17-year-old. Okay. And I remember thinking, will I ever be able to get a job so I can live and survive and do what my mum and dad did? And that was like the big task, because we were surrounded by unemployment and everything else. And as you said, that the golden ticket was a job in the bank. Valerie is set for life.
Well, the thing was, out of the 6 girls, 5 of us at one stage or another did work in the bank, but none of us stayed. And all of us at one time or another have actually had our own business. And I suppose, in fact, my father didn't realize at the time that he was a bit of an entrepreneur, because he did a bit of this and a bit of that. And he, sold himself as a musician. People called and rang. We were all trained how to answer the telephone in case somebody was ringing to book him for a gig, and make sure that we took the diary entry and all that kind of thing.
It was really important, wasn't it?
It was absolutely, but there's skills that kids don't have nowadays, because nobody answers a phone, nobody makes a phone call. So we were taught those kinds of things. They were really important at the time, and I suppose what they gave us were people skills, and to be able to get up and do your party piece and sing a song was really important as well.
Yeah.
So we were all fairly, I would say, out of the 6 of us, we were all probably 60, 70, 80% of us were very confident, and very able to speak for ourselves. So I suppose I got the job in the bank, and then wanted to have more, wanted to do more, and moved around a little bit, but then decided, look, what do I enjoy doing? And I suppose I always say this, I was kind of nearly coaching myself at the time without really knowing what it was that I was doing. And one Christmas, as people do with New Year's resolutions, I sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote down what my strengths were and what I enjoyed doing. And top of the list was singing. So I thought, well, how can I, if I wanted to sing, then I better go do something about it. So, well, what action do you take? I started taking some singing lessons. And I don't know. I mean, this is kind of definitely a pattern throughout my life, is that I make a decision and the things come to me, So I was doing the singing lessons probably only about a month, and I saw an ad in the paper for the Bunratty Singers in Shannon Heritage.
Now tell me, what stage of your career was this? How many years were you into the bank?
I was a couple of years into the bank. I had actually left the bank and moved on to another company. I was trying to kind of better myself and move up. And I was 24. I was 23, almost 24. So back in 1990, it's 30 years ago in Easter that I went down to the Castles. And I went for the job, and you had to do an audition. My father nearly had a heart attack, that I was going to go for an audition for a job singing for my supper, as he put it. And he wouldn't help me because he didn't want that for his daughter, the way that he had a life where they didn't know where the next, few quid was coming from. They didn't know if he'd have work at the weekend or next week. So he didn't want that for his children. So he didn't help me with the audition, the first audition.
It's interesting from his point of view
Yeah.
that he knew
Yeah.
the trials and tribulations of
He didn't want it. He just didn't want it
being
for us.
exposed in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. He wanted more. He wanted better. So I went for the second, got called for a second audition. And it's funny, I don't want to dwell too much on this piece of my life because it is 30 years ago. But when I went for the first audition, they didn't like my repertoire of songs that I picked. And the lady said to me, she said, just sing what you normally sing at a party. She said, what's your party? And so I sang. I didn't even stand up to sing it because I was so shocked that they didn't want me to sing what I had rehearsed. And I sang my party piece, which was Blue Moon. And nothing like what you'd sing in the castles. And then when we went for the second, I called for the second audition. She said, now you sang a bit of a bluesy song the last time, but she said, we want something different. And she told me kind of what songs they wanted. So I went home and told my father, and he said, well, he'd help me rehearse for the second audition. And he did help me. And I got it. So,
what were the songs?
I mean, back in the day, that was a big deal for that job because it was, it was had a good reputation at the time. The two songs we prepared were I Live Free, and I don't know, was the other one maybe was Danny Boy? It could have been Danny. The other one might have been Danny Boy, but definitely one of them was the I Live Free. And
beautiful songs.
I Live Free is a beautiful song. I still sing it.
Yeah.
So it's lovely. But anyway, so that brought me down to the West. I got the college life that I'd never known because I was sharing house with a bunch of girls. We were having the crack. We got paid, but really all we got paid was drinking money. So they fed us, they drove us to work, they gave us the house to live in, which, at the moment, there's people up in arms about Ryanair buying property for their staff to live in. But Shannon Heritage did that at the time. They rented accommodation for us and put us all up living together. And it was the best thing ever. We had a fantastic time. But there's only so long you can do that. And what you do, you have to get a proper job again. So I got a job in Shannon working as a receptionist. I got in contact with a lovely managing director there who took me on. And then he, who's still, I'd say, a bit of a mentor in my life over the last 30 years, encouraged me to go back to college. And I went back to college and did HR, did it at night in UL. And then I moved on from there. I was HR manager in a company in Shannon. I worked in HR in the University of Limerick. And then I got to my 40s and I got a big bang wallop. And what in God's name am I doing here? I was back in that kind of institutional kind of organization where I felt removed from what it was the business was doing, which was, I suppose, teaching and educating. And I was looking after legislative requirements, and it drained me. And anything I did to kind of up the mood or up the ante with people I worked with didn't work. So I was miserable, absolutely miserable. And I sat down with a piece of paper again. What do I enjoy? And it was working with people. I liked being with people. I liked interacting with people. And people came to me, and this is now kind of to try and answer that question of who am I? People kind of were drawn to me to ask me questions and to seek advice. And whether it was about, oh, I'm going for this job interview, or will you help me with my CV, or who's the best, provider for your health insurance. I got all the obscure kind of things, but people seem to trust me and seem to be drawn to look for my advice and ask me questions about things. So
I've got one or two questions about that.
Sure.
What you've just described there about being good with people and understanding them and naturally people coming towards you. It's probably one of those soft skills. That's a colossal skill that we all underestimate, don't we?
Yeah. I think it's about being open. I mean, I know people, they bandy about words and what they mean, but it really is about having kind of an open mindset, that you just, and actually a word I used recently in one of my newsletters, and it's something that I kind of wish I had come across earlier in my life. It's about treating people with positive regard. So therefore, you're not making judgments about people when they come to you. Everybody is coming on their own merit, and you're just taking them at face value and valuing who they are and what they have to say. And I think, sometimes we can be intolerant. We can have our own biases about things. But I definitely think that's certainly who I am, is somebody that's open-minded about things, interested and curious, and willing to oblige and help where I can.
Tell me that life phase you were at when you came to this realization. Did you have a family, mortgages, all that kind of caper?
Yeah, I had mortgages. We had 3 kids, but I was miserable. And my husband said, look, it's not worth it for you to be miserable. So I took a year out to, I was at a very low ebb, and I took a year out to kind of rejuvenate myself and to figure things out. Was I in the right place? Was I not? So one of the good things my father as well, and it's not that I didn't have a mother. My mother was great to me as well. And she was a brilliant woman. But my father, again, back to those days of never having very much, never owed money, was very good with money and saving, and taught us to be, never to be buying anything unless he could afford to have the money to pay for it, And so I was always fairly good with money, had an interest in it. So I took the year out because people came to me looking for advice. I thought maybe I'd be, a good financial advisor or something, or maybe, I could help people with their finances in some way. So I hadn't done any learning since I had done my HR in UL, nothing kind of significant. So I decided to use that year to help rejuvenate myself, to learn some new things. So I went off and I qualified as a qualified financial advisor. Did that you do it all on your own, module by module. And I started with one and ended up finishing it in the 2 years. And that was really a nice achievement for me to do. And then I also did other things. I tried other things, like I started making jewelry, and people got wine charms, so that you don't get your wine glass mixed up with the person beside you. Everybody got wine charms from me one Christmas, and I loved making I was doing the cake sales in the school. And so I started doing chocolate making things. And I did a chocolate making course down in Kenmare for a weekend. I thought maybe I was going to, open my own chocolate factory or something. So I tried different things, but I kept coming back to the piece was that I was good with people. And that was my strength. I was good at listening. I was good at being there for people to talk to. And I suppose the entertainer piece in me as well. I thought then maybe maybe it was financial coaching I might do. And then I thought it might be more training that I would do. And I didn't really know what a coach was. So I did start my own business in January 2014. It was more HR consultancy and training. And what you realize very quickly when you're starting off like that is you get all the people only call you when they have a problem. So you get all the bad stuff, and I didn't want the bad stuff. I wanted the nice stuff. But one client did ask me to get involved in a coaching program that they already had in place for their staff. And they thought I could maybe coach some of their junior HR people. And I said to them, well, I don't know, what coaching is. I don't know whether I'd be any good at it. And they said, you'll be grand. We like what you do. And just try it. So I Googled what coaching was.
Mr. Google,
I got a couple of questions to start. I got a couple of questions that you'd ask at the end. And I thought, sure, we can figure it out in the middle ourselves.
I just have a few observations because it's relevant about you and your clients and everything. The first thing is that you came to the realization yourself that, okay, this isn't working. I'm miserable. I need to change.
Yeah.
And you were able to take a year out.
Yeah. Now, I'll just jump in there with that. One of the things in which I do on another basis is myself and my husband sat down and we looked at our finances and we worked out a budget for the year so that we could do it, and we cut back on things and we did what we needed to do in order for me to be able to do that.
Yeah, because I just wanted to talk about, and we can come back to that maybe, the challenge of changing and sorting things out in the middle of all that, those responsibilities and the salary. I always think in your career progression, every year you move up and you get an increase and you get an increase. You find yourself in your 40s. You're probably in good money and everything else at that stage. And I think life and lifestyle, we have a huge ability to adjust our lifestyle to the money that's coming in. You can find yourself quite easily in a trap where the money that's coming in is 100% needed, every shilling of it. And it restricts a lot of your freedom to do things. That's the one thing I just wanted to, maybe we can come back to in a while.
We'll come back to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing is your decision to start a new business. We have an idea as to what that looks like. And it's only once you blow the whistle and you start that you realize very, very quickly that my idea, while there's a nugget in there, and that's fine, you need to be totally and utterly open to paying attention, listening to what people are saying, and tweaking and bobbing and weaving and chiseling away at your offer, your proposition, because you have to do that, don't you?
Absolutely. See, you have to be looking and see what are people looking for, what do people want. And I have to say, I had a lot of people that supported me, and again, this comes to the thing about the people piece, so my original managing director from 30 years ago, who told me to go to college, he gave me a project that lasted 2 months to work with him on something. So that got me started.
Yeah.
And a next door neighbor said to me, you need to talk to a certain lady. She might have some work for you. And he put me in touch with somebody who gave me work, a good bit of work over a period of a year or two. So, I was lucky and I use lucky in the loose term. I do believe in luck. And I know a lot of people don't, they think that it's a bit kind of flimsy or nebulous or whatever. But I think, that luck was created by the way that I interacted with people. And so people were likely to recommend me to something because they knew me and because they trusted me.
So can I say that you found yourself providing a service called coaching that you really didn't know a whole pile about and you had to learn about very, very quickly?
Yeah. I tell you, I mean, like I didn't know that there was such an industry of coaching. And when I worked with those couple of staff in that company, I got great results. And they got great results. They came back to me and said, this is really working and I've changed. And I remember there was one particular girl and she said, I don't know how to ask questions in a meeting. And she said, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what the meetings are about. And she said, I'm sitting there like an idiot. And she said, I'm scared to ask a question. And we worked through how she might do that. What would she do? How did she need to get herself in the right place to feel comfortable to do that? And she came back to me the following week and she said, you'll never believe it. She said, I asked a question. And she said, and nobody laughed. And I got an understanding of what was going on. And then she said, when I left the meeting, she said, somebody else came up behind me and said, God, thanks for asking that question. She said, I didn't know. I said, I've been sitting there for 3 weeks and I don't know what's going on. She said, your question is after giving me clarity as well. So, we're all in the same boat, but it's about helping people to get to those places. So anyway, I got great results with those couple of people. And I thought, I'm not the kind of person that can sell myself based on a couple of Google questions. So I do value education. And so I asked around, I looked around and found out what's the best course to follow for coaching. And I did a coaching program with a wonderful lady called Alva Harrington. And coaching development was who she was with at the time. She now has her own training company. And Alva, I spoke to Alva and she said, come on the course. It'll be perfect for you. And the course that I did with her was life-changing. Wow. So, and I recommend it to people, even if you've no interest in using coaching in your career or as a business, it gives you such personal awareness and personal development.
Why was it life-changing?
You got space to sit and listen and to hear yourself speak and think. And you learned an awful lot about yourself. You learned a lot about other people and how people make decisions and hold themselves back. And you learned the power in giving people space to talk and to be heard. It was just amazing. And then the bunch of people that I met on the course were fantastic as well, so I'm still friendly with quite a number of them, now as well. So that was just a wonderful experience.
So was that a formal framework and a process
Yeah.
around something that was quite instinctive to you in a way. You obviously had
Yes.
the skills at one level without
Yes.
having
Yes. Yeah. Well,
the
do you know
professional
what
structure or something.
what I really realized in that program was, and now when I say I sang back in the Castle Strike, I wasn't Celine Boyle or anything. I'm not an operatic, and you can tell by my voice, like I'm a bass. So, but I suppose I like my voice. And what I realized in the coaching was that my voice was one of my biggest strengths in the coaching process. So the
Whoa.
way that I spoke, that was one of the things that people engaged with and warmed to was my voice and the tone of my voice.
So are you saying, Valerie, if you've got a real snarky, squeaky little voice, don't become a
Don't become a
coach?
coach. No, not necessarily. I suppose it's what people connect with, and I suppose in the coaching, I always do that as I have a chemistry call with people to see, do they connect with me? Some people don't connect with me,
Yeah.
and I don't connect with some people either. So that's fine too. But my voice is a tool in my coaching process. And I
Now,
realized that in the coaching program.
yeah. You actually sent me two things, and it's quite interesting. You sent me a little cover letter or a note about the podcast, giving me your own version in your own language of who you are and what you do and your perspective and things. And then you sent me the attachment.
Yes.
And here's my bio. And I think it's something that, I don't know, in this world of AI now and everything else, I'm really thinking about, we're interviewing people at the moment.
Yes.
And in truth, there was gold in your cover note.
Yeah.
And the bio was the bio. It's all
Yes.
factual,
Yes.
A, B, C, D,
Yes.
E. This is what I did. These are the awards. This is what I... And okay, the functional stuff. But there was gold in the first part. Pure gold, using your own language. And you're talking about your voice, even though you weren't talking to me. I could hear your voice and what you wrote to me. And it was human, and it's so important. I'd nearly go as far to say it's so funny. As I said, I'm recruiting. And I'd nearly be praying to people, please write a cover note in your own voice. Please tell me why you'd like the job. Reach out to me at a human level and stop pouring corporate shite out onto a page, the formal stuff that we're all taught to do, which is quite amazing. Again, in some of the stuff you sent to me, there was some beautiful language there. And you were talking about small impacts and interactions to change people's lives for the better. That's lovely. Is it the small things?
It is the small things. And that brings me back to the Clarence piece and It's a Wonderful Life. So in the movie, he didn't realize that it had an impact on anybody. But remove yourself from the situation and you see, actually, that conversation you had, at the coffee shop with someone, might have brightened their day, might have stopped them from doing something, or might have made them do something, positive and proactive. You've no idea the conversations and the interactions that you might have on a daily basis that are impacting everybody around you. And I suppose that's what I wanted for my business. I don't want to be, Meta or, a big Bill Gates or anything like that. I just want to do the small things well. And I suppose that also has impacted then the way that I do business. So I don't offer any big glossy programs or, I don't promise, that I'm going to find you, the 7-figure salary, or anything like that. I'm not promising any of those things. I'm promising that you will have space to be heard and that when you hear what you have to say yourself, you may be able to make the changes that you need to.
So might you go as far as saying you're helping people to find a little bit more happiness in their lives? And you'd never know, they might start winning a little bit better. And that isn't about the huge salary. It's about satisfaction and enjoyment and peace of mind, whatever winning looks like for you.
Yeah, yeah. And those wins look different from my clients as well. So like I got an email this week from a lady that I've been working with over the last few months, and she got a new job, starts on the 2nd of March, thrilled with herself. And I was just doing a bit of reflecting myself, this week. And I was thinking of one of the first clients that I worked with. And she was searching for something, wanted this, wanted that. And we worked together, and she came back and she said, what I had helped her to do was to realize that actually everything she was searching for was right there in front. She was too far ahead to see what she already got.
Yeah.
So, like, they're different things, and when I work with, I'm very focused on the career coaching piece. But when people's careers aren't happy, or there's a disconnect between the way you want to work in the company that you're working in, or the recognition you're getting, or the value you're getting from it, that's going to have an effect on everything. So if you're not winning happy in work, you're not winning happy in life either.
Yeah, the thing that I say to all of our gang, even in Fusion, one of our core values is passion. And what I say to people is, I want you to bring your passion through the door with you every single day. I want to know what that passion looks like. So we want to make sure that we can open the tap so that can flow. And if you're punching in 37 and a half hours or whatever every single week, and it's not even tickling you and the things that are important to you. Now, we have to pay the bills as well, but I'd nearly be saying, get the hell out of there. This is not for you. Life is too short. And those 37 and a half hours, and if you're not enjoying them, you're miserable for a lot of the other hours as well. Don't let all of your other activities be your life. If you can, let your work be your life as well, and something that you can enjoy.
I mean, I think there's very few people that can compartmentalize. There is some that can compartmentalize, that's work and this is life. But if you're miserable in work, and even, if you're doing all your activities and you're happy with your family, come Sunday evening and you're thinking, I've got to get back in the car, or I've got to open the laptop in the morning, that's going to take your mind space from what it is that you should be doing in the present moment.
Yeah.
And so it does affect it. Yeah.
Are we a product of that time, Valerie? I wonder, back to the 80s, where you need a job to survive, be grateful if you get a job, do the job, work hard, head down, and you can retire at 65, off with you.
I'd be nostalgic for a little bit of that, because I think that there's, in some cases we've sold people a bit of a pup, that we can be all things to all men, and we can all have the big jobs, and we can all have the interesting work, and we can all bring that passion, but some jobs, are mundane. Some jobs are very transactional. Some jobs are not for everybody. And, and some jobs don't need a degree to do them, they need other things. In some ways, I think, though we teach our children to get an A in maths or history or social science or whatever it might be, are we really focusing in on what people's strengths and interests and passions are? Where can they get, where you want, I know, yours is win happy, but I just love the word joy, and I think, if there's no joy in it, then what are you doing it for? Go find something that gives you joy. And if that means that, okay, you might be on a lesser salary, or you're not, working in an area that you did your degree in, well, so be it. Life is for living, and it's not for working miserably, I think.
No, it certainly isn't. So I'm going to ask a stupid question and maybe put it to you in two ways. One is, why do people come to you? And I think that's obvious. But it's nearly, how do they end up coming to you? Is there a penny drop moment that shifts someone, and then they have to discover Valerie? From your experience, what triggers that in people? What do you recognize in people that they're, okay, and that you nearly recognize it as they come through the door?
Yeah. Most people will have a penny drop. Some people might come because they're being proactive. So some people come because it's not that they're unhappy in their job, but they want to maintain it, or they might want to develop in their role. So they're coming to me to kind of look and see, what else can I be doing and how can I do that? So there is that kind of positive piece. And then people come, that penny drop one is an ultimate moment. Something happens. So something happens in work, or they're fed up crying when they get into their car in the evening, or they're their husband or their wife or their spouse or their partner say to them, you've been complaining about this job for the last 6 months, go do something about it, you know? And so they go do something about it. Or they're thinking or along these lines and thinking, I am miserable, I need to do something about it. And they start searching. You might talk to some of their friends. Maybe they know someone who's been to a coach. They ask somebody to recommend somebody, or they do a Google search and they find me, Or people might also see me, because I am very kind of focused in on the LinkedIn piece. So people might see me and connect with me on LinkedIn. They might like something I've written, and then they may not come back to me for a couple of years even. I had somebody contact me and she said, I've been following you since, 2020, but she said, I just haven't found the right time to give you a call and see, can you help me? So it depends, but usually there is an ultimate moment that makes somebody pick up the phone.
And you're just after giving any listener a huge lesson in using social media. And I know one of the things you talk to people about is their own visibility. So you need to keep on telling your story all of the time, telling people who you are and what you do. And even years later.
Yes.
And then sometimes you're thinking, Jesus almighty, is there anyone listening to this stuff? A lot of the time you won't get replies. You might get the odd like. Someone might share a post. But for the most part, it feels like you're shoveling your wisdom and your tips about life and your skill set and everything else.
Yeah.
You're just shoveling them into the big burner and you think, God, this is just going nowhere fast. But that's not the truth.
And though that person was following me and did call me a couple of years later, there's people out there that see you and they may never interact with you. So I was at an event yesterday morning and of course got a cup of coffee and turned around to see who was available to kind of have a chat with. And I turned around and there was a couple of women in a group, but one of them happened to be a girl I used to work with 30 years ago. We meet the odd time at these kind of events. And she said to me, I really like your writing. And I thought, well, I said, thanks very much. she said, so we had mentioned about a book. She said, you should really write a book. I thought that was a lovely thing for her to say, but I probably haven't seen her since before COVID. She doesn't like my posts. She's not commenting on them. Maybe the odd time she might like them. But so I didn't know she was reading them. But so there's people reading them that never interact with you at all.
What's your process with people?
So my process is that I take a step back. So people come and they say, I need to get out of this job. I need to find a new job. And I say, well, we got to take a step back. So the step back is we look at what's important to you. So I look at people's values and we look at those in a deep dive into the values. What do they mean? What do they look like? What do they look like now? What would they look like in a new job? Are we sure these are the values that are core to your decision making? And I think all your decisions are made on the values that you hold. So if we're not really crystal clear on what they are, or have some awareness around what they are, then we're blindly making decisions about things and then kind of giving out to ourselves that, we've made the wrong decision when really you hadn't thought it through at all. So I look at the values and then back to my piece of paper of, what was I good at? What was I not good at? I look at people's strengths. So I use a strengths profiling tool. I'm a master strengths profiler. So I look at what people's strengths are. And that can be really illuminating for people, the strengths that they have. And it's amazing. It comes in, the report kind of comes with strengths and there's unrealized strengths, learned behaviors, and then there's weaknesses. And the weaknesses are less than any of the others. And the amount of people that go straight to the weakness, are you going to help me get better at those weaknesses? And no, I'm not even going to look at those weaknesses. We're not focusing on weaknesses at all. We're just going to focus on your strengths. So, so that's part of the process. And then we see what falls out of it and where it goes. So then we look at the skills and then we look at what that might look like. How would we go about finding something in that area? Do you need to upskill? Do you need to look for opportunities? Do you need to be more visible in your career? Do you need to tell your boss, you're not happy and look for something else within the organization you're in? And it's really about taking control and taking action of your circle.
I saw in what you sent through to me, and it's no surprise at all, and you've just been confirming it, that your approach is all around coaching strengths and applying positive psychology. So you're all in on the positive.
Yeah. And I do temper that. Like, I know, like, I'm not going to be, I was going to say, I'm not, Pollyanna or anything, and happy clapping around the place. But I think that it's important that we look, and, people do have hard things happen to them in difficult situations, but it's to look for the opportunity in that, so rather than saying, this is, why me, or I'm getting deeper down into it. It's about saying, well, how can I get a ladder to get myself out of this hole, and how can I get up there? So it's about looking for the opportunities to create an action.
And you don't hand them a magic wand, Valerie, do you?
Oh God, no. No. And that's the whole thing about the coaching is I'm not their savior, and I'm not going to say, oh, here, Greg, this would be a perfect new job for you, apply here. I'm not going to do that. And I don't direct career coaching. I suppose you could say there's an element of direction in there, and people do come to me because of my experience and my knowledge. So, and I would have a knowledge of the employment market and things like that, and the local economy, certainly around here in the Midwest as well. But on the whole, it's not directional, it's coaching. And the whole coaching ethos is that we're all creative, resourceful, and whole. And I think that goes back to my positive regard piece. If you go into every interaction thinking this person is creative, resourceful, and whole, then you're going to have a much deeper connection and a much more productive relationship with the person that you're.
And I presume, as part of that coaching, if I want this to be of value, I need to be up for changing a few things, don't I?
Well, I mean, if you've said you're up for a change. Yes, you need to put the work in to make those changes. So it's all well and good saying, oh yeah, I'll do this, or I need to do this, or I'll look into doing that. I will do it, and I am doing it, and I did it, Valerie, and look at the difference that's made.
Is there a stage of life typically with people coming through the door to you?
So they're mostly people in mid-career, but mid-career could be anything between 30 and 60, Yeah, I don't do students, because as Princess Diana said, there's three people in that relationship. It's the parent, the coachee, and me, and I don't go there. So it's mostly people that have had at least one job out of college, and I work. Now, the odd person, I have worked with college students, helping them to get their co-op placements, or in their final year of college, wondering should they go on and do a master's or should they go and get a job. But on the whole, it's people in their mid-career.
Yeah. And could that include business owners and people like that?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of business owners, but I have a few. I've like a handful of business owners. Well, actually, no, that's untrue. I have a handful of business owners, small business owners, but then I've got a lovely team of a leadership team that I'm working with as well. And they're a fintech organization, and I work with the whole leadership team. And that's been really interesting as well. So since COVID, I've got like people from all over the world. So I've got clients in Mexico and Qatar and Australia and everywhere, So that's been amazing as well.
That international dimension, how did that come about?
It came about through LinkedIn. So somebody contacted me on LinkedIn, this company. I thought it was some sort of a scam. I said, ignore it. Then I kind of said, well, I'll just reply to it and see what happens. So it turns out it was a company that provides career coaching to leaders who are taking part in leadership programs in high-level universities all over the world. So I work with on a regular basis, because there's people going through these programs all the time. So they could be doing a program on chief sustainability officer, chief digital officer, blended leadership programs, and they're all online. And the people that are doing the courses are scattered all over the world, and they're with colleges like MIT, University of Chicago, Florida University, all these kind of big names of universities in the States. And so I'm working with those leaders. So they are allowed a certain number of sessions as part of the program. And then a couple of them have liked the work that I've done with them and have then hired me privately as well. So the leadership, the fintech one is one of those. I had worked with the CEO, and then he got me to work with all his team as well. So that worked out well there. But that's ongoing. I'm doing that on a regular basis. A handful of people regularly that I'm working with that are doing those leadership programs. So it's very interesting.
Okay.
And you get to meet such a diverse group of people. It's amazing.
Yeah. So you're coaching the world from Castleconnell.
I'm coaching the world from Castleconnell, yeah. By the banks of the lovely Shannon, yeah.
And I presume the voice works just as well with them, does it?
It does. Do you know what? Because one of the guys doesn't have any English, and I don't have any Spanish, and we do most of our coaching through the chat on Zoom, and it's some of the best sessions that I've ever had with clients. It's because I have to keep my questions really clean and tight, so that there's no room for ambiguity when I write them in English, he reads them in Spanish, he writes his answers in Spanish, and I read it in English. And it's worked out really, really well.
One of the things I would say about your industry a little bit is the word coach. And going back in time, you were saying, God, what is this coaching about?
Yeah.
It's kind of a term now that's everywhere, and there's so
Everyone's
many people using it. Yeah. And I saw as well, there's a note somewhere about it being unregulated. I think there's a danger with that profession, that someone who does a 2-week course online and suddenly, I'm a coach. I'm a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is that possibility, and there are people out there that, say they're a coach and they're not. And that's why that course that I did was life-changing. We went into theories of different theories that we did around, how we behave, how we are with people, and you don't get that if you just go to do a 2-week course online, So it's really important. Firstly, I'd say if anybody wants to be a coach, make sure that you do a reputable program and that it's of a certain duration and you're getting a proper qualification. Proper qualification at the end of it will mean that it's recognized by one of the international coaching bodies. So I myself are a member of the International Coaching Federation. It's an international body. There's others. EMCC would be another. That's the European Mentoring and Coaching. I don't know what the last C stands for, but it's European Mentoring and Coaching. And they're also a very reputable body. And the other body would be the Association of Coaching. So those three would be the main coaching bodies. And so you want to make sure that the coach that you are working with is a member of one of those bodies. Because what that means is that we have to adhere to their code of ethics and their guidelines on how to behave as a coach. So it's really important that people, if they're hiring a coach, that they look for somebody that has a proper qualification or membership of an organization. And then on top of that, so you do your coaching qualification, you're a member of an organization, then you can take it to the next level and you can get what they call a credential. So a credential means that I can prove that I have completed a certain number of hours of coaching hours with my clients, and that I have also fulfilled an examination process, and that my coaching has been examined. I have to submit a recording of my coaching to ensure that it's meeting the required standards. So there's 3 levels of that in the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. There's ACC, PCC, and MCC. So I'm in the middle level. I'm a PCC. So there's about 70 of us in the country, in Ireland, and there's probably about maybe 10 or 12 MCC people in the country.
PCC is a professional certified coach.
PCC is professional certified coach.
Okay.
ACC is associate certified. It's significant. It's significant to do it. And then I have to maintain it. So my credential has to be renewed on a 3-year basis as well. And so I have other requirements to do that in order to be able to renew my qualification. So, I mean, look, sometimes these things can be a bit wishy-washy, but I think it's important that you professionalize your industry. And so I'm very supportive of other coaches coming up as well. I'll give them help and support and advice as much as I can. And I'm a member of what we call a coaching circle, where we offer support and engagement between coaches as well. So, I think it's important if you're part of an industry that you give back a little bit.
Yeah. So for anyone that has those natural, empathetic, good listening skills,
Yeah.
that has a soothing, non-annoying, screechy voice,
Screechy voice.
but they'd like to get into this, yeah, just do this
Yeah.
in a professional way. How can people contact you?
So you can contact me definitely on LinkedIn. So at Valerie O'Hanlon on LinkedIn. You can find me on my website, which is clarenceconsulting.ie. And I mean, I'm on the other social media platforms, but I'm not really overly active. You'll get the odd Instagram post and the odd tweet from me, but LinkedIn is where I'm at. And you can find a wealth of information there. I do a monthly newsletter where I give tips and things as well. So you'll find me there.
And we should tell the listeners that this podcast is not being sponsored by LinkedIn, even though we've both been chatting about it.
Well, do you know that's where we met, Greg?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah. So many of my connections are via LinkedIn. So I've got a few wrap-up questions for you, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
What's happiness to you?
Happiness is waking up in the morning with a feeling that you're looking forward to the day ahead. That's happiness.
I like that.
Yeah.
And a little bit going back to what you were saying about, having joy. And when I talk about winning happy, say to people a little bit, well, you might love playing football. You could play football all day and all night, but it might be a bit pointless if we didn't have goalposts.
Yes.
And that feeling of the ball hitting the back of the net and the celebrations that you have. Mm. So for you, what's winning?
Winning is when somebody emails me after a coaching program is finished, without being solicited to do so by me, to say, thank you.
Yeah.
That was worthwhile. And it has made a difference to who I am and what I'm doing. That's winning. And anything like that. Even yesterday, when that girl said to me, I really like your writing, that was winning, because that tells me what somebody's listening, somebody's reading it. So that's winning. And I mean, I suppose that's all from a very work perspective. I mean, I've got 3 kids. Winning is when we all sit down at the kitchen table and have dinner, and there's no arguments and there's no giving out and there's no saying, I don't like this, that we're all there and we're chatting and we're enjoying each other's company. And that's winning as well.
Is that very different to the kitchen table when you were growing up?
No, there would have been plenty of arguments as well there too. But probably a bit too many. But no, I think that's the heart of any home, I think, is the kitchen table and everybody sitting around it, chatting and talking and sharing. And that's definitely, yeah.
What would you have been arguing about typically?
Oh, at home, when I was younger, oh gosh, my parents were probably fairly strict. So it was usually probably because we weren't allowed out, to a disco or a dance, or we'd come home too late or something like that. Or, or a father had frightened off some fella that had knocked on the door or something. Yes.
Yeah.
That was usually what the arguments were about.
Because you imagine the musician that is going to be very, laissez-faire, easy come, easy go, freedom, everyone.
No. I guess he saw things when he was out working that he didn't want happening to his 6 lovely daughters, so he wanted to wrap us up in cotton wool and lock us in the house, never to go out, so I think that's what it was. I'm not sure, but I think that's what.
What was his name?
Well, now there's a name for you. His name was Sylvester Ryder, and he went by the name of Silver Ryder. Yeah.
The Silver Rider. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And your mum?
Yeah. My mum was Patsy. Yeah,
Patsy.
Lovely. She was a lovely lady. Both not with us anymore, but they were a big loss to us.
But they're always with you, Valerie.
Absolutely.
My very last question, and it's a biggie. What was your best day ever?
Oh, God, that's a very hard question. What was the best day ever? Oh, my goodness. What was the best day ever? I suppose my husband should tell me that it was probably the day I met him was the best day.
For him.
Best day ever. For him, anyway. And for me, I guess, because we're together a long time as well. So that would have been a good day, the day I met him. But from a work perspective, I think probably the best day was the day I got off the train from Dublin to come down to Limerick.
To Napoe Castle.
To Napoe Castle. And just quickly, I know finish up, but when I got off the train, I'm not even sure if I'd been on a train out of Dublin before at that stage, because we would have drove places or got the bus. We never got the train down the country. And there was a girl getting off in the other carriage, and she had long red flowing curls and a harp. And I said, I'll follow her. She must be going to the same place I am. So yeah, that was probably the best day. Yeah.
Yeah, well, she could have been a frustrated musician who wanted a solid job and she's going for a bank interview. You'd never know.
Yes, yeah. No, she was going the same place I was.
I can imagine.
She was going the same place.
Where did you meet your husband?
I met him in Bunratty, but he wasn't there to see a banquet. He was a friend of a friend, and we had an end of year party every year. But because it was all mostly girls, there was not many guys to invite. So one of the girls said, "I've got this gang of guys up in Dublin that I know. I'll ask them down," and the rest is history. He's a Dub as well. He's a North Sider. I'm a South Sider. Yeah.
You both emigrated.
Yeah.
Valerie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And for someone who thought, I'm not sure at all if I should be on this thing, can I say you were the perfect Win Happy guest? Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Craig. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.